I preview, I'm fiddling with my beard. So we see how that goes. Oh shit, it's not my tea. Awesome. Right, hello, welcome to the Wrestling Headlines NXT review. My name is Matt Maher, aka Imp, and we are live here on YouTube and also available in podcast form. Links in the description, or head over to wrestlingheadlines.net. Fingers crossed the lag's not too bad, and you don't just sit there for 5 minutes just Imp fiddling with his beard. I grew it for November, and I thought, yeah, why not? I've been locked down, why not try it? And I've always been someone to trim it. I've never liked my beard long, and now it's too long. Isn't it? And it only dawned on me yesterday. So, oh yeah, it's not November anymore. I can trim it now. So currently, Imp has a bushy beard. So he keeps playing with it, and that's why I cut it, because I keep playing with it. I can't be trusted with a big beard. Anyway, let's talk about NXT. Yeah. I'm a bit fatigued today, so we'll see how this goes. The go-home show for War Games. A quick TLDR review. The show felt very nothing to me, but at least the main event had something. Incredibly inconsequential in comparison to AEW. The numbers came out just before I went live. Thank God, it's taking ages. Like normally, it's all settled. Like I'm setting up the show. It's all there. I don't have to worry about anything. This week it's like, are they going to be there? They dropped just in time. So AEW up into the 900,000s and NXT all the way down in the 600,000s, aka the same audience as normal, but the big jump was in the 18 to 40 whatever it is demographic, where there was a massive gap between them and AEW and NXT in terms of those points. So again, it's a certain demo keeping NXT alive, which is long term not great. That said, the demo which are watching AEW are the one more likely to shift to the other platforms, not TV. But still, long term, if you're not grabbing that younger audience, you're in. Or it's a big bracket as well, 18 to 40. Like in terms of like the way different generations are split, you've got 2 or 3 generations in there. As in, you're going to have whatever was before millennial, and whatever it is now. Too tight. Is it Gen Z and Gen X? 32. So they're all in there in that kind of bracket as well. I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm drifting away. Point being that NXT did not. It's like they knew they had no chance against the Winter Who's Coming stuff. A massive main event that set up a interesting interpromotional relationship between AEW and Impact Wrestling, which seems to. And then one of the questions to Triple H, who's just done a media call as well. There's been so many things that have. Really, the most exciting stuff to do with this week's NXT episode weren't on the episode. As in, it's seeing what AEW put on this amazing show, or Triple H on his media call, what was he saying before he went live? And the thing that seems to be ripped apart by the, call it the online Twitter people, just the different places, not just Twitter, was that one of the questions Triple H answered was about whether WWE would be willing to work with other promotions, and Triple H essentially said that they're open for business. And the media call's available on all the wrestling news websites if you care. Point being, he got ripped apart for saying WWE are open for business if they think the relationship is right. But then you look at the evidence of that, and it's more like they feed to you rather than really have a massive benefit. The closest will be in the UK, I guess. But of course, that's really difficult to measure, because it just so happened when they got their biggest promotion, there was the sex scandal stuff, and then there was the pandemic at the same time as well. Meaning that how do you measure the success of it? Like, no one's been able to go to any shows. It seems to be doing quite well. Who knows now? But yeah, those 2 things are speaking out on the pandemic. Yeah, like how do you measure it? And the other one, the American companies, like Evolve has devolved. So, I wouldn't exactly call that working with to directly benefit a company. Because and this looks like a working relationship, as in it's not a we are going to allow you into our conglomerate. It's more we want to work with you and help promote each other, which is that's on the AEW side. So when Triple H said that, my point just there seemed to get echoed quite a bit, just bringing up the actual evidence of recent times when they've worked in quotations with different companies. It's like, we are giving you this amazing opportunity to be within our amazing presence. Isn't that fantastic? Whilst the AEW side seems to be, let's just lift up wrestling as a whole. We'll acknowledge you as a separate promotion, not a WWE conglomerate thing. So yeah, of course, AEW conglomerate thing, switching it about. But yeah, so that was the big news really. Those 2 pieces of things together. AEW destroyed NXT this week. I say destroyed, but Site Council likes the background. Yes, awesome to see you do here, Site Council. I will warn you, I did 3-hour stream of Among Us today, so I'm extremely fatigued. I'm so out of it. I'll watch some of it back and see. I don't know the dynamic of it because I was so busy trying to keep everything rolling that people were calling me out on Among Us for like, well, why don't you just stand there and then this thing happens? I've got so many windows open. So yeah, that was fun. Anyway, yes, the background, yes. What is the background this week? It is Marcel. Oh, it's the tag team match. Marcel, them pointing at each other, but it works just perfectly with them poking out of either picture that I've got on the screen. So yeah, I was really proud of that one. Anyway, let's talk about the main event. I've called this episode about Io Shirai joining the Team Shotzi. That's what they call themselves. Mostly because, like, what I said at the start of this show, nothing happened. This show is incredibly inconsequential, especially as I watched AEW first. Normally I watch NXT and fit in AEW if I can, and most times I fail. But this week I was like, no, I'm watching AEW first. I'm really excited to watch that show. Then I'm going to be jumping into NXT. And when I put on NXT afterwards, I was like, in comparison, this show is nothing. As in, I was getting nothing out of that show until the main event. It was, and that's pretty, for me, when that's your final show before the takeover, I'm not even kidding. Until this NXT, I didn't even know that NXT TakeOver was this Sunday. I generally didn't. I've got TLC in my mind, and I'm trying to figure that into the schedule. And TakeOver, I was just like, in terms of me managing fatigue levels, which as a European fan covering WWE, managing those fatigue levels is extremely it's a massive part of it. Because your body clock just gets completely thrown out of whack any time you're up super late, as I call it. Because for me, this is a late night. It's not a super late night. For example, I'm not going to bed as the sun's rising. It's still dark. It's late, but it's still dark when I'm going to bed. So, but whenever I do a super late night for a pay-per-view or takeover or whatnot, you have to figure out stuff just because you're going to be out of whack. What's going to happen, that sort of thing. And takeover, finding out today is well, I might not be covering takeover live then. I've shot over a message to a couple of people to ask for possible help, but we'll see if that happens. But yeah, so yes, for me that's about. In terms of it, I knew they were building to War Games. Obviously, it's impossible to miss that. But in terms of when the actual show was, I didn't know till this episode. I don't think they said on the show when it was. So unless you search for yourself, unless I'm being stupid and I just zoned out and I went to write stuff instead of looking at the screen or whatever, stop paying attention or whatever. I do that. That's one caveat I have to put on these reviews. Because I'm making notes, I've got just over 1,000 words for this show tonight. When I'm making notes, that means I miss stuff because I've got to go do that. So it happens every now and then. But we'll say the main event was great, got me excited. Every single week, and this statement stays. And even, again, Triple H said it on the conference call. Or not after the conference call. No, he did. He said it. He said that. Okay, this is where it gets complicated English sentence-wise. He said on the conference call that he said after the NXT show. There we go. It's because he said that he said. That's why my brain just tripped over itself. But yeah, so he said that he said after NXT finished, no one can touch our NXT women's division. They are on such a different level. They are incredible there. The whole division is badass. To which I wholeheartedly agree. I say it every single week I do this review. And I cover the Raw review, as I just said. I watched AEW first this week. I cover NXT on here as well. I catch SmackDown when I can. For me, the NXT Women's Division is my favourite. It's the strongest. I mean, maybe I'd have a different opinion on Impact Wrestling if I had time to watch it, which it sounds like I'm going to have to try and do next week. Normally Wednesday's my day off. I recover from the Raw review. I have one day off in the middle of the week from this stuff. But yeah, for me, that they are the strongest women's division right now in American wrestling. So when I'm watching this, I'm like, yeah, I got the same feeling this week. And yes, I got the main event ladder match, but it's the same thing where my statement from, I think it was last week or maybe the week before, where I was saying even when it's a subpar NXT, or if it's an NXT that's just building, and I wouldn't exactly call it subpar, but it's doing long-term booking, so it's not a crazy show or anything. It's laying the groundwork for later. Even in those weeks, the women stand out. Every single week, they really do. It's an incredible roster. And yeah, I agree with the chat. Yeah, we're the women's NXT right now. They have a greater impact and it's so awesome to see. And that they are the only match I'm looking forward to. I mean, the War Games matches are fun. The men's will also be fun, but I'm genuinely looking forward to the women's. Don't really care about the NA match. Really don't care about Grimes versus Loomis. What else is on that card? There's no Finn Balor match. There's a Tommaso Ciampa versus Timothy Thatcher, which for me feels like a strong NXT TV match. Maybe not a takeover match. In terms of, like, would it be like really exciting to watch or anything? And then there's the 2 War Games matches. And the men's one, I think Pat is amazing. Pat and his merry men, love them. They're great. The picture of Pat I've got on here today, it's like he's doing some really crappy stand-up routine. I love it. It made me laugh so much when I cut out everybody else and just put him on the side, going, ha. It really made me laugh. But I'm going to regret doing that noise. But the whole women's division in NXT, it's on such a great level. And they are the one thing I'm looking forward to this Sunday. Don't know if I'll be watching live because, again, managing fatigue levels and thinking of TLC and Christmas. It's Christmas season, I can't be up so late. There's end of year stuff, which, like anybody who writes for, does anything for any website knows. Like this December, when it hits December and you've got your end of year stuff to do, like, shit gets hectic. It gets so... problems to swear on YouTube, oh well. But it gets so hectic that you just... like, you have to really try and figure out and manage, and the product at the end of it is always great. It's always fantastic. You always have such a great time reminiscing, but you're also bloody knackered because you've had to write or do special shows or whatever. So many of them. So yeah, and in my case, maybe try and come up with stuff for the Christmas period when I'm not going to be able to do these shows for those like 1 or 2 week periods at the end of the year. But yeah, So takeover falls into that hole a little bit. So my point I'm making is I don't particularly think they've done that grand a job of building War Games, because I didn't know it was even this Sunday till this show. I'm only really looking forward to one match, but I can at least accept they've built both War Games matches pretty identically well, I guess, in a way. It's just that women's division really lends itself, whilst it's more like the Undisputed Era story at War Games, I guess. So it's a nice wrap up rather than I'm amped to see this. I'm amped to see the women's match. It's the only one on the show, though. So, yeah. And NXT itself seems to fall a little bit... I guess it's an issue I've had with main roster stuff, where outside the main event, a lot of it feels inconsequential. My complaint with Raw this week was that it was a lot of repeat stuff we've already seen, so why'd I have to watch it again? And this week, the main event was literally another ladder match after last week's ladder match. And I know it's the way they're doing it with the War Games, is the way that you choose who the last person's going to be. You have this big, dangerous ladder match, and it really gets everybody hyped. And you've got a great way for people to interfere and stuff, because it's no DQ. Yeah, it's fine. I mean, only issue is they did Halloween Havoc, where they had essentially main evented with a TLC match. And then 2 weeks later, you had a ladder match. And the week after that, you had another ladder match. So within the span of a month, you've had 3 ladder matches. Our third match with folk climbing ladders in 4 or 5 weeks. Like, I hope to never see one again. Like, I kid, I'll always love the ladder match. But, like, come on, lads, it's a bit much. And that's a massive issue with WWE as a whole, which directly is right there in NXT. You've had 3 ladder matches in 4 or 5 weeks. Like, is no one just bringing that up? Yeah. That's my only snag. Is we've now seen 3, and watching this match, I was like, I do not want to see one now for a long time, because I've watched 3 in this short period. It's just don't give it me again. Anyway, but both teams' members were hype on the balcony in the crowd once again, as Raquel Gonzalez faced Shotzi Blackheart in the main event, with the winner getting the War Games advantage at TakeOver War Games. And Gonzalez is... I can't say that. Gonzalez's incredible strength once again on real display, almost effortlessly, I can't speak today, launching the smaller lass about, Shotzi really having to improvise, doing exactly that as she used the ringside cage to her advantage, kicking Mama Cool off before coffin dropping onto the lass. Crazy Shotzi with a running senton to the corner as Gonzalez's Gonzalez was lying face first onto the ladder in the corner, which was draped across Brett's rope. Followed up by a senton to the outside as Blackheart landed rough on the mat outside. Indy Hartwell brought a ladder to help the heels down from their podium, but Ripley and Moon also made their way down on their own ladder. Chaos at ringside as Hartwell set up a ladder in the ring. with the whole distraction happening at ringside with everybody. Shotzi brought her down, but it gave Raquel enough time to recover and lariat the babyface down. Climbing the ladder all by herself, Gonzalez... Let me just think. Gonzalez was hit. I don't think of a better way to put that. Gonzalez was knocked down by a springboarding Io Shirai. There we go. Huzzah! One of my calls from last week, because I gave 2 calls, either Io Shirai or Mercedes Martinez, and it's the champion. Yeah, the beating up from last week was enough motivation for her to jump into the match. A big old moonsault to the whole crowd at ringside. Suddenly it's now Shotzi in the ring by herself, climbs the ladder, takes down the briefcase. The goodies with the rare War Games advantage this Sunday. And yeah, because normally it's the baddies, like every year, the baddies get the advantage, but you come up with new creative ways for that to happen. This year, no, it's the babyfaces that get that final participant announced in the match in Io Shirai. They all pose on the ladder afterwards, and he got that rare goodie advantage in it. The baddies rocked by the 4th member in Io Shirai's arrival, and they just watched them all pose. He got the heels like snaring at them like, "Grr." He got the babyfaces posing on the ladder like, yeah, we're badass babyfaces. And in my head I was like, this is such a stacked match. And after I wrote that down, like, of course, later in the day, I heard Triple H bragging about the women's division. And I'm just like, well, yeah, I had such a positive reaction to it. And I feel like I can say that after quantifying that I enjoyed AEW's show this week infinitely more than NXT. Aside from the main event, nothing grabbed me on the show. Didn't care. It just felt so nothing. After the entirety of Dynamite, I was just so in to every single segment. On NXT, I only cared about the main event. So that's my overall review of the show. I think the phrase again was incredibly inconsequential in comparison. Just watch AEW this week and watch the main event because it was a good ladder match. Unless, like me, you're like, another ladder match? Like, really? It was good, and he did a really good job of getting you amped for War Games. It's just like, yeah, I can understand. It's another ladder match. We just saw one last week. TLC with Tables, Ladders and Scares. That was it. We did that the week before, or a few weeks before. So I felt some fatigue, and after the match, I was like, I enjoyed it, but I never want to see it again. So yeah. Anyway, I do like ladder matches. It's just there's been a lot of them in this short period. I need a break. Anyway, quick sip out of my Game of Thrones mug, which is not as topical as my New Day mug. Forgot to breathe as I was thinking of my next segment. Next gag, and means the gag's dead now because I did that. Damian Priest and Leon Ruff versus Legado de Fantasma, Escobar and Mendoza opened the show this week. Johnny Gargano on commentary in his bright white blazer, and Priest has an invested interest in making sure the North American Championship makes it to TakeOver. Ruff was essentially set for a cruiserweight tag match before the big lad inserted himself just to bloody make sure. Johnny Gargano just with the statement of, I can't believe a fan dressed up as Ghostface, that's so cool. And the commentary just hammering it home, was like, yes, what a coincidence, eh, Johnny? What a coincidence, there's those ghost faces in the crowd behind you. I'm sure you know nothing about that. So, that felt like a building block dynamic for something to happen at TakeOver. The Lucha Baddies got in there beating on Ruff before getting tossed around by the tall man. To be fair, Leon held his own, but Priest made easy work of the smaller lads. In the end, Priest signalled for the reckoning. Ruff misread the outstretched hand as a tag as he just went, I'm going to do the reckoning. But not as childish or camp. So he went like that, and Leon Ruff tagged in thinking it was a outstretched hand for a tag. But if anything, it just helped to lead to the finish. Damien swinging Mendoza round first anyway, before the NA champion flew in with a frog splash for the win. Johnny from the commentary booth shouting at the two, with 2 ghost-faced peeps in the crowd behind him. So yeah, I don't know, I wouldn't say this did anything to get me amped for the North American Championship match. It continued the story they're going with, but I wouldn't say I'm excited for the match. It doesn't mean it won't be good, because I don't know, it depends how much comedy they put in there, but it feels like this could be a great dynamic with Leon Ruff properly proving himself, as long as they, that story they're going with. I trust NXT to... If they were the main roster doing this story, I would not trust Leon Ruff to get any form of positive rub out of this. I was like, yeah, we essentially made a joke out of, and if he retains it out of a comedy bit. But here, this is like in NXT. I totally trust them to show he's got heart and stuff, and make him have him not give up. Well, just he's more difficult to put away than they expected, or it wasn't a fluke. That's what he doesn't have to win, but he can get that across by him competing so strongly. That's what I personally do, and I do trust NXT to do that. But is it the same NXT now that we're talking about? Is this generation of NXT as trustworthy as it have been in the past? We'll find out. We're truly into the NXT TV era. We'll see how trusted they can be in the future. But right now, I'm going in positively. Doesn't mean I care for TakeOver. I guess I'll throw in a prediction as well. I don't know. Johnny Gargano wins it. Steals it back. Because of the ghost faces. Let's go with that. After this, we've got a series of video stuff. Just to really hammer home, this is a go-home show, so quite a few VTRs. Undisputed Era have the first VTR of the night. The gang go out to eat, dressed all dapper in their suits, and they reminisce over their great era of NXT, how difficult recent times have been, and how they're going to snatch them back at War Games. Yeah. Yes. Immediately, my only thought as an Englishman was watching that going, are you at a packed restaurant? Now? It's just like... I know that the COVID rules are a bit more lax in certain states in America, but... Are you really at a packed restaurant? So, yeah. Is that the story you're telling here? Anyway, Candice and friends were then interviewed backstage. They were confident that going into War Games, and they put over Raquel Gonzalez, who said that she's going to run over Shotzi in their Who Gets the Advantage for War Games match. She did not. August Gray versus Cameron Grimes. In my first of two matches I just zoned out of. Grimes gets a showcase before War Games. Grimes? Oh, that works. War Games, because it's Gray versus Grimes, so it's War Games. Right now, Gray brought some offence, but this was essentially your standard NXT jobber match. Make the takeover fella feel like a tad stronger. In the end, spinning August down into a side slam before closing up shop with the cave-in double stomp. First time I've reviewed a Cameron Grimes match, and remembered the double stomp's called the cave-in. I'm getting better. Post-match, the Southern man attacked with the leather strap, like he's giving a wee overly confident message to Dexter Lumis before getting scared out of his skin by the man himself, who just stares at him in the ring. Cameron Grimes does all of the overacting to compensate for the man's nothing acting, which, again, that's the dynamic of their characters. That sounded a bit like I was ripping on it. Not really. I'm just not into the feud. Yes, that wasn't a negative. I just said it in a negative way. So, yeah, don't care. It's the best way to put it. I've not been into the feud at all. They've not won me over. I'm not excited for it in the slightest. So, yeah. But, obviously, I don't know if some fans are, but definitely people at NXT are. They're fully behind it and excited for it. I just don't care. Yeah. Anyway, Jake Atlas versus Tony Nese. Atlas with a stronger showing after being used as an enhancement talent recently. I think he snagged a win or two, but he still essentially felt like he's been in that role. Like he's fallen quite a tad since his cruiserweight clash with Escobar. Although, you know the importance of a match when they cut to a side-by-side for the arrival of bigger talent. So, yes, I shouldn't be caring too much about this. Shifting to picture-in-picture for Pat McAfee and his Merry Men's a rival. Atlas seemed in control in the match until Nese snatched it from him, but became frustrated with Jake kicking out and gave the lad an immediate swing back in, staggering Nese with a stunner thing, before ending with that awesome cartwheel DDT. Still sad they got rid of the LGB DDT name. Such a good name. Post-match, yeah, that's that really. Post-match he had a wee little interview. Atlas stated his intentions for Escobar's Cruiserweight Championship. So yeah, that was that match. I guess it gave Atlas direction after the match, but this coming after the Grimes match, I genuinely struggled to care. This is after watching such a tight episode of AEW. This match here, I didn't really. That's 2 segments in a row, did not care, which might have even made up the first hour, because I think Pat kicked off the second hour. Maybe I'm a bit off there. Yeah, anyway, Pat completely ripped into Undisputed Era's Night Out video next up, as it was the Merry Men in the house, as I've written it, because I'm a weird person. Pat completely ripped into them, calling them out for their rented tuxedos, them reminiscing about the past, brother. Puts over his own men. So puts over Pete Dunne as a main event champion with his incredible NXT UK run. And Birch and Lorcan as main eventers themselves, finally getting their time to show it. No fear of Undisputed Era going into this Sunday. They're going to make a statement for the NXT fans on Sunday with those lads. And also this Sunday, they end the Undisputed Era. Good for you. And that was it. Pat's music hits and off they walk. So no physical clash going into it. We got that last week. This was explaining their emotional stuff before then going into it. Again, I feel like I wouldn't have felt as down on that if the rest of the episode had been a bit more lively, because it came after, as in this was the thing to pull me back in, and it was it's fine. It did its job. It felt like that segment where I didn't get hyped for War Games. I thought, it did its job. So, yeah, which is a shame, I guess. After that, we got. I'm actually really positive on this next stuff. Xia Li and Bo's adventures continues. This week, the old man making the two dunk themselves in a tub in a dark room over and over and over, bowing before the hooded lass, and then they get whacked over the back with kendo sticks. I really like where this. I think it's because it's really recently these video packages for NXT have really kicked up in terms of production. I think I said it before. Quite often you'll see technology and things used in NXT before the main roster as they're testing stuff out, see how it works. And personally, if the main roster kind of character video packages are like these in the future, that's a lot of positives, because these are great. They're fantastic. They're really good. Closer to Lucha Underground in terms of influence as well. That with the way that the Xia Li and Bo stuff's carrying out. Still, no idea who the hooded lass is, but these past 2 weeks immediately have been won over. Of course, we'll wait and see, because they're still keeping a lot of it shrouded in secrecy. So once they unveil stuff, does it come across? Is it too corny? Is it a bit weird? Or like Lucha Underground, do they get that balance just right? Because for me, that was one of Lucha Underground's best achievements, was that balancing act between the serious caring about the wrestling and the supernatural stuff. And if this dabbles in weird, then I'm fine with that, because it can be pulled off. That's what LU taught me. So yeah, calling it LU like the cool kids. What's wrong with me? Sip of tea. That's lukewarm. Grizzled Young Veterans versus Imperium. It's a Grizzled Young Veterans segment, so of course I was positive on it. First positive tick, Liverpool-style scarves with the Grizzled Young Veteran logos and things on it. Oh, that was great. As soon as I saw that, I was like, get in, lads. That's fantastic. Although the match never starts with the match with Everrise, as they ended up facing Imperium, because Bartel and Eichner attacked the opponents and set up a completely new match. A much tougher return challenge for the former NXT UK Tag Champions right upon us then. Some nice back and forth, both teams showing why they talk as strongly as they do, but with a literal non-finish. There's not much to delve into aside that. Gibson and Bartel both toppled to the outside before the ad break as the referee separated them, came back from the break for a little bit more action until Everrise came in and blah 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 blah. Pulled them off the apron and in a bit of a kerfuffle, a DQ, and then Everrise are skedaddling. So yeah, that's that. And yeah, I can't remember, did that happen during the ad break? I remember I've made a note of I'm sorry what, but I can't remember what on. So maybe it happened in the ad break and I was just a bit confused. I can't remember. I don't know if I'm forgetting something there. It was pictured on WWE.com, so I definitely watched it. It definitely happened, because in post I've seen the pictures. But I cannot remember for the life of me. And this leads us into our final segment of the show, which means once again this NXT review hits a nice tidy 35 minutes or so by the time I've read through this and finished it off. Thatch Can live session. Timothy Thatcher's teaching this week about distractions. Wrestlers lose to distractions all the time, he says. So tonight he'll show us how to deal with distraction, directly feeding off of Ciampa last week. And yes, character stuff where he's getting himself over as, I'm going to teach you how to not get distracted, when last week he got distracted. I was like, yes, great heel stuff, I love that. Directly feeding off the Ciampa stuff. And speaking of, when Thatcher turned round after giving that quick introduction directly to the camera, Ciampa was behind him. The man himself was right there. Thatcher tried to pretend to walk away and to trick into taking down Ciampa, but the former NXT champion is way too wise for that. Instead, the help of his students turned the tide Thatcher's way again. Nice little touch having the student do that. Launching Tommaso into the ringside crowd cage before choking the man out in the ring. After the ad break, Timothy was pleased, like a student, like showing that they can learn like that. And he was bragging on about how he's going to teach Ciampa some respect. Personally, this is... when it started, I was like, this is pretty low-key for Ciampa. Don't really know if I care that much. But now I feel like it's starting to elevate Thatcher a bit. This was the week that did it. I was kind of like, why would Ciampa care about this guy for weeks? But this week, I felt like I got it. Purely because of Ciampa's promos, it all clicked like this week. Seeing Ciampa interfere in the lesson, like Ciampa talking about how the locker room kind of is in NXT right now and how he's going to change that, and Timothy Thatcher preaching himself as a teacher for others to follow, and Ciampa standing up to that teacher. It suddenly all clicked. It's like, oh, I get it now. And another praise for NXT, where it's been like a slow build in a way, where they've finally got to their point this week. I felt like. I mean, it wasn't subtle. I just didn't grab it. In terms of why should I care about these two going against each other? This week I was like, oh, I get it now. Yeah, I'm up for that. Just like I am shaving my beard. It's way too long. I need to trim this. Anyway, so that was the final thing I got to talk about this week. Thatcher and Ciampa. I thought it was a solid piece, but again, none of the show aside from the main event really made me care about War Games. And when I finished the show, immediately I was just like, in terms of like excitedness and being amped for something, I just don't. I'm not. I don't feel like staying up till 5-6 a.m. to cover War Games just because I just don't have really any excitement for it. Personally, like watching the next day type of thing, maybe covering it with somebody else at some point, maybe. But yeah, it's an odd one. I don't think this show did a very good job of making me care about War Games. It made me care about the women's division as a whole and care about their stuff at War Games, but yeah, it still feels like they never, in terms of getting to War Games, for me, they never got out of the building block stage. Because for weeks I was saying, I'm not really going to rip into NXT, purely because it feels like they were doing building blocks and slowly getting to their point. And that is the stuff which you then reap further down the line. Not every single week of television has to be exhilarating and just absolutely adrenaline pumping the entire time. You can take some weeks to place building blocks to then get to that point. And that felt like NXT never got out of that gear going into the build to War Games. I don't know if Halloween Havoc, they built Halloween Havoc, then there just wasn't enough time after that special. So as a fan, the specials that they're doing, because AW did Winter is Coming this week, and we've had Halloween Havoc as well, and the Great American Bash. When those shows roll about, as a fan, we get some amazing content. Be it AW, be it NXT, when they do those special shows, they are incredibly fun to watch. But I feel like Halloween Havoc might have hurt War Games, because I just don't care about War Games. I was genuinely excited for Halloween Havoc, thought they did a great job. I've just not been excited for War Games, like, at all. So yeah, maybe AEW putting on such a strong show, just taking the wind out of their sails. But yeah, it's an odd one. But yes, my summarisation for this week is incredibly inconsequential in comparison. I said that 3 times now. It was fine. The main event was great, but it was yet another ladder match, and we've had a dose of them recently. So I wouldn't say you're particularly missing loads, but it once again helped the women's division feel badass, which is great to see once again. So that's all I've got to say. Yeah, so I will be back on. So I don't think there will be an aftershock for NXT, just in terms of managing December fatigue. I don't think I am able to do it. But we'll see what kind of coverage there is. There'll be columns on WrestlingHeadlines.net as anyway. Likelihood is Hustle will be posting a Hustle immediate post, as he normally does. So that'll likely be up. And currently, I would say, the main page writers group for Wrestling Headlines, where we're talking. I say group, it's the direct messaging thing. That Yeah, that's just purely excited about AEW. Like, you wouldn't even know War Games is happening if you were in the main. Just so ecstatic about what happened on AEW yesterday that NXT's just fallen to the background in the chat. And I even put in there, as like, I was watching the show and I just felt, it's like, this is so inconsequential. Just nothing massive happening. It was the final show before the big thing where those big things will happen. Because it's a takeover, it's War Games. But it feels extremely low-key. I think. I don't know if part of it was AEW, I don't know if part of it was them not really getting out of that building block stage, or if there's a lot of matches on there I just don't really care about, and that's a main roster issue, where I feel like right now the main roster is killing it with their main events, on both SmackDown and Raw. Both champions feel legit, both divisions feel fantastic. Mid-cards, however, feel completely throwaway and a waste of time. That's my personal feeling, and that's what NXT felt like this week. Main events bloody nailed it. Especially the women. The mid-card, don't care. Not one iota. And for me, watching AEW, when I cared about every single segment, that's just a massive kind of... For me, that's a massive point I'm bringing up there. It's a WWE show booking trope. Well, to be fair, I say trope. But yeah, it's trope, because even in the Ashley deal, at their height, they were slaying it in the main events, whilst WCW were the reverse of the main events might be a bit... but the mid-card, you got some fantastic stuff. You got the cruiserweights. You got some really strong US title action. Then you get Sting Hogan. Which is... But NXT feels a bit like WWE going back to their ways when AEW is showing you the whole show can be solid. You don't need to make some things fine to then not overshadow the main event. I feel like it's a big influence on the indie scene, because the indie scene has been criticised in the past for, and I know I'm going on an end of show tangent that's got not really much to do with NXT. It links back relatively well, but it's the indie thing where like the shows were often criticised for every match trying to outdo the other, whilst I feel like AEW's hit a nice string of being able to build the show. Card orders, and the production side is a massive part of it. Or when I say production, I mean producing side. It's a massive part of it. But when you watch the show, it's like, yeah, that built great. So yeah. Anyway, I am going to end this show, drink my lukewarm tea, and go to bed. Get ready for December. Lots of writing, lots of random stuff. It's the end of year period, and everyone in my wrestling world is extremely excited because of what AEW's done. But with NXT, War Games is this Sunday. Don't know if I'll be covering it. If I am covering it, obviously there'll be maybe something after Shocks, maybe something the day after, or something. And but for definite, I'll be here again on Tuesday for the Raw review, and next Thursday for the NXT review. The notice I will put out there is the week of Christmas, so I'll be doing Aftershock for TLC. Then I've got 4 days to recover before it's Christmas, and those 4 days normally where I am pretty hectic with a lot of stuff going on. So we'll see how that goes. But the week leading up to Christmas and the week of Christmas, so it'll be a 2-week period, there will be no reviews. I'll be back in the new year to do that stuff. And in that same period as well is obviously Wrestle Kingdom. So the big return will either be Raw or Wrestle Kingdom, depending on how the days line up. Technically, I think the first one might be an NXT show. So I think the big return might be Wrestle Kingdom. Just the way that the weeks line up. Either that or the first NXT of the year. Anyway, that's the end of that. Anyway, yes. Incredibly inconsequential in comparison. I will be back. Follow me on Twitter at the Damn Implicat. Again, I've been streaming on Twitch at the Implications with 2 S's. And Wrestling Headlines are also on Twitter at Wrestle Headlines. If you want to go there. All the links are in the description to check everything else out. And I keep forgetting to put the donate link to the RedCircle thing. Keep forgetting to put it there, but it does exist. Again, I'm way too. I don't push that anywhere near enough. It's so in the background. You have to click through like 3 different links to get to it. Make it a bit easier. Anyway, I'll be back next week. So with that, I bid you adieu. Get my tea. Get my cold, lukewarm tea, which I'm going to enjoy. With that, I bid you adieu. Adios.